Hey guys, I'm Chris Buck, and a very warm welcome to Friday Fretworks, and this week, the Fender Jazzmaster, why I ignored it, and why I regret it. Rewind to just over a year back to August of 2022, and I came by this guitar. It's a Squier 40th anniversary Jazzmaster. Now, I've spoken about this guitar at length in the past in dedicated videos and rig rundowns and the like, so I'm not going to go on about it too much, but suffice to say that it is somewhat noteworthy in that it is the guitar that really sparked my love affair with Jazzmasters. After so long of not really giving them a second glance, it is still entirely stock. It's been through thick and thin with me on the road over the last year without ever really missing a beat, despite some less than desirable conditions. Planes, trains, automobiles, the lot. It is a phenomenally good guitar. I've been on a bit of a Jazzmaster kick ever since I got it, which I guess begs the question, why did I give them such a wide berth for so long? I cast your mind back a few years, 2020 actually, just before COVID hit. I was living in France near a great little guitar shop called Vintage Guitars in Rennes. I was lucky enough to pop in and shoot a couple of videos actually with some of their amazing stock. There was an all-gold 55 Les Paul. There was a 64 ES335, the same spec, near enough the same day out of the factory as Clapton's. And there was a 59 ES335, just three that particularly spring to mind. But to my eternal shame, two beautiful guitars which Benoit had in stock at the time, which I totally blanked, really didn't give a second glance, were a 61 slab-board Sunburst Jazzmaster and a 63 veneer-board Sunburst Jazzmaster. Two stunningly beautiful guitars that, as I said, to my eternal shame, I really didn't give the credit or attention that they warranted. I guess I was there ultimately to shoot videos, and I was a little bit concerned that I wouldn't really know what to play on them, and the internet would sniff a Pretender a mile off. Jazzmasters were for the cool indie guys, Robert Smith, Jay Maskis, Kevin Shields, Belinda Butcher, Lee Ronaldo, or Thurston Moore, not blues rock guys like myself. After all, you never saw Clapton or even Hendrix with a Jazzmaster, did you? Suffice to say, I was pretty ignorant, but I guess better late to the party than never. And having just acquired my third Jazzmaster, a parts caster from Golden Era Age Guitars, I think I can conclusively say that I've arrived at the party. And boy, is it a good one. Okay, so full disclosure, somewhat sacrilegiously I guess, I don't actually use the rhythm circuit, those little extra knobs and switches at the top of a Jazzmaster that still nobody really seems to fully understand. I actually did a little video a while ago talking through the Jazzmaster's history and a full rundown of all its appointments, so I'll kind of only quickly summarise here, but you can essentially think of them as a preset rhythm circuit. It was actually inspired by an idea that Forrest White, Fender's then manufacturing manager, had way back in the late 1940s after watching pioneering guitar player Alvino Ray at a gig in Ohio struggling to flick back and forth between his rhythm and his lead sound. A few years later, when Alvino would visit the Fender factory, Forrest informed him that he may have actually found a solution. In addition to the master controls that govern both pickups, the two roller wheels and slide switch on a Jazzmaster offered access to a preset sound using just the neck pickup. When the switch is down, in its lead position, the guitar is controlled solely by the usual master volume and tone controls, as well as the three-way selector. But when the switch is up in its rhythm position, it's routed through two lower value potentiometers, specifically 50K, relative to the 1000K or 1 meg pots, which are in the lead circuit. It is kind of essentially an extension of that original dead tone position that you had on those early Telecasters and the Squiers, where the treble was preset all the way off. But of course, with the roller wheels on a Jazzmaster, you have infinitely more flexibility and versatility for shades of grey. It is fundamentally a great idea to have kind of access to a preset rhythm and lead sound, arguably less relevant in today's world with amp channel switching and effects pedals and the like, but even if it is a little bit fiddly to operate, it is a brilliant idea, and suffice to say, is one of the major selling points of the Jazzmaster. But it isn't the reason I fell in love with the Jazzmaster. That would very much be the Trem. And one thing I highlighted in my recent video taking a look at the Squier Jazzmasters Jazzmaster was that the tremolo, or more accurately, vibrato, cheers Leo Fender, didn't feel as good as the Trem on my 40th anniversary Squier, which was superb, really effortless. I guess I've since learned there's actually quite a lot you can do to adjust the Trem on a Jazzmaster, but at the time, my first impression of that 40th anniversary model, and I guess by extension my first impression of a Jazzmaster as a guitar model, was that the Trem was absolutely superb. Thanks to the single spring mounted under the tailpiece, it's a lot more fluid feeling than, say, a Stratocaster's tremolo. Probably closer to the feel of a Bigsby, actually, come to think of it. And I guess even while I was an avid Strat player, I never really used the Trem. I'm never entirely convinced that it wasn't going to knock the guitar out of tune. And if I'm entirely honest, I didn't really find it that intuitive to use. By comparison, the Trem on a Jazzmaster feels like much more of a natural extension of the guitar's sound, as opposed to an ad hoc addendum, as can sometimes feel the case with a Stratocaster. It's one of the reasons I was so hell-bent on getting a good Trem for my parts caster, and in that respect I settled on an actual model from 1964 that had clearly been parted out from a guitar at some point, and such is the Jazzmaster's still somewhat unsung status that it didn't set me back an arm and a leg in the same way that maybe a Strat Trem of the same vintage would. Hugh Price, the man I trusted with putting this entire guitar together, needless to say, did an absolutely outstanding job. Come to expect nothing less at this point, and has actually detailed the entire process over on Tone Twin's YouTube channel. I'll link to that video down below should you want to check it out. But in regards to the guitar itself and what it consists of, as I said, we have a golden era aged body and neck from Northern Ireland. We have a mastery bridge. We've got that original 64 Trem. We've got James Home of Tone electronics, and of course radio sharp pickups. I'm absolutely over the moon with the way this turned out. Really is a good one. As I said earlier, even if a Jazzmaster has found favour with people more in my line of work over the years, it has undoubtedly become one of the main go-to guitars of choice for alternative music. Ironically, Fender totally missed the mark with their intended jazz player demographic, but fast forward then to the late 70s, early 80s, when Jazzmasters started finding their way to bargain basements. It was the likes of Elvis Costello and television's Tom Verlaine that would find the Jazzmaster and give it a new lease of life. Of course, in the years that followed, we've had anyone from Dinosaur Jr.'s Jay Mascis to My Bloody Valentine's Kevin Shields and Belinda Butcher, to The Cars' Rick Ocasek, to Yola Tango's Ira Kaplan, to Wilco's Nels Klein and Jeff Tweedy, to Coldplay's Johnny Buckland, to The Cure's Robert Smith, to the Flaming Lips' Wayne Coyne. They've all been seen sporting Jazzmasters pretty extensively over the years, and as much as the genesis of that relationship may well have been one of economic convenience, at least initially, there is a reason that they've continued to find favour for so long, and a massive part of that is undoubtedly the pickups. Consistently confused with P90s, they're arguably much closer to a Strat pickup, albeit flatter and wider, as Leo Fender explained. The pickup wasn't so deep. It was wider, thinner, and more spaced out. And the more spaced out the coil is, the wider the spectrum under the string and the warmer the tone. Consequently, Jazzmasters have this thin, wide, open sound with a definite mid-scooped EQ curve that really lends itself to adding effects, whether we're talking cavernous delays or reverbs or fuzzes, but all without ever really threatening to lose definition or articulation. It is very easy to see why the Jazzmaster became the guitar of choice for shoegaze and alt-rock. It's one of the few guitars I've ever played that almost begs you to add more and to keep experimenting. Yes, controlling that level of effects can be tricky. It is an art form undoubtedly to itself, but if you can get your head around it, there is no guitar better for it than a Jazzmaster. It is endlessly inspiring. And there you have it. Fender may well have missed their intended mark or their intended demographic for jazz players with the Jazzmasters, and I undoubtedly went all around the houses to finally realise how good a guitar it actually is. But I got there eventually, and I guess that is the important thing. And if there is something to be learned from today's video, it's that don't be dissuaded by a guitar's reputation, or indeed its name. If it has 6 strings, it may well be the guitar for you. As ever, I'm Chris Buck. Thank you very much for watching. Happy New Year. This is Friday Fretworks. Please subscribe with the bell icon if you haven't already. And I shall see you next week for another episode. Cheers, guys. Take care. See you soon.